Hello friends, you guys want to see a really sick mini PC? I was using the MS-A1 from Minisforum as my primary daily driver mini PC for, I have no idea, 9 months? Something like that. If you watch my channel, you see it all the time. It's sick. Today I'm going to talk to you about the MS-A2. Bam! It looks the same from the front, more or less. It's a very small mini PC. They sell it as like a server? What do they label it as something like a, I don't know, like a professional thing for only professional people who are doing professional stuff and like want to serve data and that kind of stuff. Nah, this is for everybody. This is for everybody. It's a tiny little thing. Look how small that is next to my head. It's very small, very premium, all metal design. Oops, it's open by the way, just like the MS-A2. That's different than the MS-A1, this MS-A2 in a couple of ways. So on the front here, you do get nice USB-A, a slow one, good for mice and keyboard, 2 fast ones, 5 gigabit. It's quick. Headphone. You can see through it. Lots of airflow. On the top there, vent. On the bottom there, vent. On the back here, more stuff going on. So we have power, 2 more USB-A. We have a HDMI out, 2 USB-C on this one. They're not USB 4, but they're quick enough. So you get 2 USB-C on this here. Last year, or whatever you want to call it, last model, the MS-A1, you only got 1 USB-A. Dual HDMI, dual Ethernet, fantastic as well. You can use these for networking as well. And there's an empty slot here. The MS-A1 comes with an Oculink slot, Oculink port. So you can use that Oculink port to hook up to eGPUs, like the DEG1 from Minisforum. This one here, it doesn't come with it natively. You can buy a little thing, but what it does come with, it's just a different product, just so you know. Open it up here. Backside here, we have slots for multiple NVMEs, up to 3, your choice. And here's where the fun part gets in. CPU cooler there. There's a beast of a CPU under there, by the way. I got the model here with the 7945HX beast CPU. 16 core, 32 threads, based on the 7950X desktop, based on, as in it is, the same chip. It's just mobile, so it's soldered, you can't take it off, and it runs out 100 watt eco mode. Guess what I do on my desktop? I have a 7950X and I run it in 100 watt eco mode. You can also spec this out the 9950X variant, which is the 9945HX mobile thing. It's the same chip, it's just mobile version, so it's socketed. So anyways, moral of the story is the CPU is a behemoth. You'll see when we get there. This thing's crazy powerful. Like to have that level of CPU, let's just go back. Let's have that level of CPU power in a handheld, in a little mini PC like this is asinine. It's so powerful. And spoiler, it runs pretty cool. And this year, with the MS-A2, you get a PCI slot. You didn't have that. You had a big fan on the MS-A1, which was good. I mean, it helped it run cool. What that means is you can put in single slot GPUs, such as the RX 6400. Not a beast, but still very good. I have a deshelled, spoiler for the video. Can you see that? Here we go. ADA 2000. A GPU, which is a 16 gigabyte professional GPU, and I ended up buying a 1-slot mod. Well, the owner actually sent it to me. Put that in there. Now all of a sudden I have a 7945HX CPU with a freaking ADA 2000 in there, 16 gigabyte professional GPU to do heavy professional work. Sick. You could put an ADA 4000 if you're a baller. Get yourself 20 gigabytes of professional work VRAM. I've tested the ADA 2000. It's crazy good in a different GPU, a different system. This is an A2000, so previous generation, A2000. This is the 6 gigabyte model. You can also get a 12 gigabyte model. I also tested another ADA GPU, but it's not on camera. So what I'm saying here is that you can take this mini PC and make yourself something that is so crazy and ridiculous that I'm just going to be frank and tell you that the MS-A2 is a outstanding mini PC before I even get into the review. So let's jump into the review now that I have spoiled the entire video and show you the rest of it. Okay, so inside here, underneath this here, you essentially just take out 3 screws, you pop that off. We have our RAM slot here, 2 RAM slots. This is where the PCI-based GPU can go if need be. A low-profile single slot it'll have to be. So I have a few I'm going to test here in this video. And we have our heatsink here. Let's see what's underneath here. A hunk of copper to keep it cool. And it does have a PTM type of material, phase change material. I'm going to have to take it off and put it back on now, but they are using a PTM, so that's good. It's not a paste. PTM is significantly better than a paste, so the fact that they are using a PTM is very good to see, especially in such a small form factor type design here. It should help keep the temperatures down a ton here. These are chiplet based. You can see there's multiple chips that make up the APU. So the PTM material, I don't know what type of PTM it is, if it's Honeywell something or some other brand, whatever it is, but it is a PTM. So generally speaking, that means it's way better than paste. It's going to just straight up perform better than a paste, but it's also going to have much better longevity here. So okay, so the inside of the two mini PCs is very different. Let's actually flip this one over here because we're actually going to show the opposite side. So they do have a very similar shell, but inside we can see there's quite a bit of difference. Let's just flip them this way. So they're left to right reading order. MS1, MS-A1, MS-A2. So underneath here, right underneath here, there is a CPU socket. You can take out the chips here. You actually take out a couple pieces here. And then take out some screws there, you take that off, and underneath there is a desktop CPU, so a socket. You can swap it out. This mini here came with a 9950X desktop CPU, incredibly powerful CPU. I actually flipped it out. I've done many tests with different ones, and I find that the non-X CPUs work better, which makes sense. They are lower base wattage, so they run cooler and they don't throttle as much and they're quieter. So I have in here, I've had a 7700, right now I have a 7900 in here, 7900, 12 core 24 thread, 12 core? Yeah, 12 core 24 thread CPU in there, very good, non-X version. This is just an auxiliary fan as well, help blow more out of this giant heatsink here. So this is all for the CPU. It's got a big CPU in there, desktop tier CPU, potentially the X variant, which it has the wattage and the volts to support, so you need big cooling. Underneath here, we can pull this up, but underneath here there are two RAM sticks over here, 1 and 2. So you just pull up this giant heatsink. There's two RAM sticks under there and two NVMEs. So two RAM sticks, two NVMEs on this side, and the actual chip cooling. On this one, the MS-A2, it's totally different. So underneath here, take off that there, there's two RAM sticks there. They'll get a little bit of general cooling just from sitting on this piece of metal, but they don't get as much of a giant heatsink. Probably okay, to be honest, but just be aware of that. So that goes there. This is a blower style. It's going to blow the air over this giant copper heatsink here. A little different than the two of them. There's more metal mass here, just a different layout. Over here we have a PCI slot. So PCI slot here allows you to put in a single slot GPU in here, right? Single slot as in single slot height. It can't be a 2 slot. It has to be a 1 slot. That's just the way that it is. It also needs to be board power. Board power meaning there's no PCI coming off, to power your device. In here we have MS-A1, one NVMe slot here, one NVMe slot here. And there's really nothing going on over here, as you can see. It's just kind of a slot. There's some kind of header there, I guess some kind of fan header. Maybe they repurpose these motherboards, or down the road they can do variations of them. I don't know. It's going to blow air, pull air in. It's going to blow air out the back here over these NVMEs right here. So we have M.2s here. So we have a Wi-Fi chip here, M.2.1, M.2.2, M.2.3, or 1, 2, 3 in this mini PC. In this one you can do 4. Okay, and there's our first GPU. I just took out that little bracket there, took out one screw, pulled it out, and I just slapped that in. And there we go, it's in. It is important to note that they do have to be low profile. So if you can see the PCI slot there, a standard GPU will come out much farther. Low profile means they're going to be much shorter this way. So you have to be low profile that way. You also need to be single slot. You can see that there. It's just only a single slot thick. You can't put in dual slots. So you can get low profile GPUs that are dual slot, such as this here. You can see that's a dual slot. So this one here is low profile. Rather than being the full length, it's low profile, cut in half that way, but it's a dual slot. This one here is low profile, but it's a single slot. So it fits in there just fine. Those are the first two requirements. The third requirement is that you have to get all your power off of the board there. You can see there is no PCI connector to go anywhere into a GPU and supply power. So all of your power has to come from the PCI slot itself. So you do get lower performance on them. So say, for example, this is an ADA 2000 GPU from Nvidia. It's board power. It offers good performance for the size, really good performance for the size. If you get the ADA 2000 that is larger, there's a full length one, a full width one, so it's not going to be low profile, and it does take an 8-pin. It's the same die in here, however, it has more performance. So you're going to lose a little bit of performance there, but generally speaking, the performance to size ratio is quite good. One of the negatives here is that you are going to be a little bit strapped for choices, partially, one slot and board power and smaller that way. So you can't, for example, get yourself a 5060 low profile from Gigabyte because it's, first of all, it's 2-slot and it needs a PCI connector. So even these aren't necessarily going to work. These are great for OEM systems. Some larger type systems can fit these, but this one here, it's not going to fit. Physically, if you put that in the slot there, it's going to sit outside of the case, right? So that would basically sit in there like that, and you would be sitting literally outside of the case. Now there is one company that I found online. It's Nerdware, and backwards E3 RDware, and they actually have custom. The creator of the company, the owner company, has these custom brackets that you can buy off of him. It's in Europe, but the price is actually, honestly, it's pretty fair considering the amount of copper on there especially. And you take this, you take off the OEM chassis there, and you slap this on there, and what happens is you go from a 2-slot down to a 1-slot. Everything else will remain the same, so you will have the original board power, which does meet the first criteria. It is going to be low profile. That's the other criteria there. And then what you're going to do is go from 2-slot down to 1-slot. This here is an A2000, slightly different. These are offered in 12 gigabytes and 6 gigabyte models. This is a 6 gigabyte model. Also got it from a friend. He actually also sent me one of the Nerdware custom brackets. Now this one's a little different because this is a generation 1 bracket, not generation 2. So this one has been revised. So if you get this now for the A2000, ADA 2000, A2000, if you get the A2000 bracket off of these guys here, you'll get a revised one. So this is a generation 1 bracket. It'll be fine, honestly. It'll be just fine. That works fine though. And then I did pick up this off of Newegg. I didn't even know it existed, but I picked this up off of Newegg. This was brand new, very expensive. But I mean, for what it is, you're kind of limited. This here is an ADA 2000, just like this, but it's a single slot variant. Isn't that cool? I didn't even know this existed. So we'll open this up. Just have a quick look. So we'll get this box out of here. So this is the same thing, PNY, same OEM brand. And this is the ADA 2000 single slot. So it's technically called the ADA 2000E. Now, the die on these is the same. You actually get the same GPU on both of them, the ADA 2000. However, this runs at higher watts. It'll run at 75 to 80 watts. This one, I believe, will peak at about 60 watts. So even though it's technically the same GPU, it runs at lower watts. The reason they do that is it has nerfed cooling. You can see how much thinner that is. All right, it's going to be considerably thinner. Like it's actually less than half of the volume there. Considerably less than half the volume overall. Okay, so here's a huge time jump later. I've been playing with both of the MS-A1 and the MS-A2. Basically just getting some ideas. I've actually done a ton of GPU testing on the MS-A2 now. But what I want to do right now is I want to look at some of the differences between them. The primary thing being here is noise, wattages, and that kind of stuff on the CPU. I don't recommend necessarily putting X-branded CPUs in these. I use the 7700, AMD 7700 non-X for months. It was really nice because it kept the noise down, the ambient noise of the machine way lower, and under load, also quieter. Very quiet. Their fans are going, I can hear them, but they're extremely quiet. My noise floor is about 32, sometimes even 33, depending. So this is very quiet. I couldn't hear it really even over my laptop that's off to the left. So generally speaking, the fans aren't just going, they are going all the time, but they're essentially more or less close to being inaudible. They're there, but they're very quiet. No different than like a desktop PC with the system fans running. This is actually quieter. I mean, it's on the desk. In my case, it's on the desk right in front of me, so I might hear it a little bit more because it's right there. You could also just move it further away. Like a lot of the time I would have it like back there. Can't hear it at all really. So let's come in here. We'll just look, there's nothing really going on right now. Okay, so now we're running some Cinebench. We're almost at a full cycle here. It's actually weirdly quiet. I wonder if it's going to get louder, but weird. I mean, yeah, it's not an HX, it's not an X CPU, right? So you can see it's pulling 66 watts. These CPUs are super efficient. If I put in a X branded CPU, so if I put in a 7900X instead of a 7900, this would be closer to 100 watts right here. It would be pulling much more watts. These non-X CPUs, they will boost briefly, but technically they are, set at around 65. Even now it's at 40 only. If you compare that to let's say a gaming laptop, it's going to be much quieter. Gaming laptop would be massively more noisy than this. So very good. I mean, the performance to wattage performance here is quite good. Okay, so now looking at the system kind of just idling, hanging out here, it's not really making any noise. 35, might be like 1 dB, maybe 1.5 over the MS-A1. This is also coming off of a 4K video edit. I don't do these things in chronological order. So it cooled down really fast. Like I've done most of this video, actually. This is being filmed at the end, and it's just like chilled out. It idles a little higher than the other one, but again, it's an HXX chip rather than no X, so it's just more powerful. Wattages actually idle slightly lower than the 7900. That's cool. 17 watts over here. The 7900 non-X was like 2025. It's a desktop chip, so that's one of the advantages here of these mobile chips. Not bad. Let's come in here and do a little video edit, a little Cinebench render. The fans will probably kick up in a sec. Wattages here are higher, so you can see here it's pulling 100 watts. The MS-A1 can pull also 100 watts, but if you put in an HX chip, so 9950X that it came with originally, 7950X, whatever, 7950X 3D, it'll pull 100 watts. This one will pull 100 watts boost, and then it'll probably drop down a little bit, 80. Oh, it's so freaking fast. Look at that. 30,000 on this little turdlet here. Yeah, on the MS-A1 I was able to get similar scores, but I had to put in like a 9950X on that because it was throttling so bad. Here, it just doesn't need as many watts. It's more efficient because it's a mobile variant. So 76 watts here is giving us the same score as like what 100 watts on a 9950X on the MS-A1 was doing, if I recall correctly. Even after a full run, a couple runs, it only dropped 1,000, still doing very well. It's actually really quiet too. $41-ish. And again, that's on a beast of a mobile chip. It's basically a 7950X desktop CPU in kind of a tiny little PC like that. And this will do very similar. The reason is it has the same CPU. I'm tearing it apart because I'm doing work on it. But this Atom Man here, of course, this will do very similar performance because it has the same CPU. Just monster. It's just so monstrous to put a 7950X into something like this. And yeah, you'll get some throttling here and there. It doesn't matter. Like, it's not running noisy and the performance is crazy. Okay, and here is the mini PC. And we will slot in the ADA 2000E low profile. I'm going to have to switch off the bracket. Okay, it would help if I hit the record button, but I forgot to hit the record button, whatever. So that's that there swapped out. You just take out those two, put that in. That's that. This goes in here. And I can't see what I'm doing because I'm at a weird angle. The joys of recording on camera. Watch this. Watch how hard this is to get in. Done. Okay, so now I have a massively powerful GPU inside of my MS-A2. MS-A2 7945HX. Amazingly powerful GPU. CPU. And I just added a amazingly powerful GPU. That's it. Okay, we don't need to do a ton of testing per GPU on camera for this video. I'll have the data at the end, but there's the MS-A2 hooked up. It's kind of messy right now. Normally what I would do is tuck it over here. Something like that there. Have this over here, but for easy access, because I need to keep taking it apart, I have it over there. If you guys watch my channel, you know that I use the MS-A1 for, I don't even know, months. And I usually just tucked it off to the side over there, but it's nice and exposed right there, easy for me to measure noise and all that kind of stuff. So we're starting off here. I'll just throw in the ADA 2000E in this case. There's the 2000 as well, which should be more powerful. The E here is going to be slightly less powerful, but it's just slightly more plug and play. So we're just going to use this because you don't have to mod it. You don't have to buy the like external casing or anything like that to fit it in. You literally just buy the GPU and put it in. So in terms of just being like the easiest, we'll do a little Final Fantasy here though. This is a brutal game. So we're at 1440p. We can use some scaling here just to start. Again, we're at 1440p. We have access to DLSS 4 technically. DLSS 4, which is pretty sweet, because it's an ADA Lovelace GPU. Kind of like a mix. You can do all kinds of stuff. I went with high or medium rather than low. You can do low, like you could go like that kind of stuff, but I want to do high or medium. Low only on these two here. Textures, right? We can play with some stuff. Just get an idea of what we're getting here. This CPU is not even going to like try in this game here. But yeah. This is just a rough idea of what kind of gaming performance you can get out of something here. This, I mean, I think you could buy this and just use it as a gaming PC because it's still going to be pretty impressive. But I don't think that's the primary use for someone who's buying this. If you're going to use gaming, I mean, MS, even from Minisforum, they have other options. Or honestly, you'd probably use the Oculink port and hook it up to a GPU like that. Because, you know, if you're focused on gaming, you'll be like, whatever, I don't care about that extra size. However, if you just want the slimmest thing that's going to be able to rip this game, like we're looking at 60 FPS per, pretty static. This is a brutal game and a very difficult area of the game to run. And look at that performance. 31 for the 0.1% lows. 60 for the average, approximately 60 for the average. The wattage on this GPU is lower. You can see it's only 47 watts on the ADA 2000E. The ADA 2000 normal will use more watts and it will run better. We'll cut to that as well, maybe just show you the difference here. But so here is an RTX ADA 2000 or 2000 ADA right here. This is an MS-A2 I'm working on a review of. You can see there that it's too thick. It's a 2-slot GPU. So it is a board power GPU. It has, you know, all the other requirements, but unfortunately it's a 2-slot, so it sits too high. I am going to modify it, though, with this over here. This here is a shell you can buy. Put up the link to the website there. And you can modify it, and it will decrease the thickness down to a 1-slot, just like the ADA 2000E, to compare the two of them. So I'm doing kind of like a bunch of kind of videos out of this back-to-back. I'm just kind of pillaging content, video, like footage off of both of them. So we'll just have a look at the performance here and the thermals on this model here, and then we'll do the modification, the thermal modification there, and see how it can improve or get worse. I'm assuming it's not going to get any better, probably about the same at best, because, you know, although it is, you know, there's a lot more copper on that than this here, it's also less thermal mass and a smaller fan. Look at that. That's from the old one. And there we go. That's the original. That's the original one there, as you can see. Cute little plastic thing. A little bit of metal. This would have been in there. It's fine. So you do lose a lot of height, as you're looking for there, but otherwise it's basically quite similar. It's cool. Look at that. Sick. So now I've taken my MS-A2 with a 7945HX, super powerful 16 core 32 thread CPU. And we gave it an ADA 2000. Isn't that something cool? This is unnecessary, but you can put this in too. For the GPU, it's upside down. For the GPU, just to keep it from moving around. Look at that. That's clean. Okay, so here we go with the mod. This is just now the 1-slot mod, single slot mod. But as I said before, I mean, you're halving the size of the card. the fan is going from that large down to that large. So it's just less able to move air. And of course, you know, this is not as much like a massive piece of copper or anything, but the actual surface area of something like that, if you actually were to math that out, is very high. So, I mean, what he's doing here is he's adding a big giant heat sink of copper, and then there's only so much you can do with a thin little thing. Like, I mean, it's doing a pretty decent job. I was kind of worried about, you know, taking this card and cutting it in half, and then you lose a ton of airflow, that kind of stuff. And I was worried about it having very bad throttling, but honestly, we are losing performance, but it's not massively monumental. It's just going down a bit too. And again, this is under, like, this has been running for quite some time. I also have benchmarking, like, results going in the back. So, but again, I mean, we're getting, this is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, 1440p with some scaling, of course, but pretty high settings too. So we'll just pause here, comparing the two of them. On the left, we have the ADA 2000, just standard, but this is with the one slot mod. On the right, we have the ADA 2000E. This one here, it comes with one slot. You can see that even with the one slot mod on the standard ADA, which will essentially make it hotter than its base, we are still getting higher wattage despite that. So it's not going to run as performant as the original 2-slot mod. It's going to be a little bit less thermal mass, as I mentioned. So the wattages have to come down to accommodate that. But even so, it's still offering better performance on the Nerdware modification than on the ADA 2000E. It's just generally a better cooler. There's a lot more thermal mass, a lot more copper, and the fan is similar. So you're generally speaking just getting better performance. You can see the 1% lows much higher, 0.1% lows better. Average is a little bit higher as well. You're looking at around 10% better performance overall over the ADA 2000E. And again, remember, this is the same die. It just comes down to, you know, price to performance and all that. Factoring in the cost of the ADA 2000 on the left here and the Nerdware modification, it was still around the same price, if not slightly cheaper than just getting the ADA 2000E, and more performant, higher watts, better performance overall. And continuing on here, this is where it's going to excel. I mean, you can definitely do some pretty serious gaming on these things, especially with an ADA 2000 GPU. 1440p type gaming with some scaling in that. 1080p, it's going to tear through that. But what it's more going to be designed for is professional work, daily work, that kind of stuff. So I did bring in here 3 video clips. Come in here. This is where the system is going to really excel. So we're going to be able to bring in the CPU here. We're going to be able to tax the CPU here by bringing that in. We're about 10 minutes of 4K 60 video clips. Boom, audio done, audio done, audio done, video done. So just a few seconds, and we were fully processed there. Looked great, very, very, very nice. Then we can get into the exporting. So normally if you're exporting with this system, you could do CPU-based rendering. It would be a little suspect on that CPU. The iGPU is just not very good. So we could come in here though, and we can go, you know, test, for example. And now what we have access to is the Nvidia ADA 2000 in this case, Nvidia 2000. We can try the other ones too, but see what kind of editing time we can get here. So Nvidia, NVENC, hardware encoding, and we can rip through this. So let's see what we can do here. Rip out this 4K 60 video. It's nothing super complicated or anything, but it's a 4K 60 video. And we're compressing it down with HEVC, which compresses it a ton. It makes it much more demanding. I expect this thing to render really fast. As you can see, it's doing that. I mean, it's a 16 gigabyte GPU. Sure, it's not some gaming beast, but it is a professional work beast, to be quite honest. This should be running similar to I have some desktop GPUs I can run over Oculink. We'll test it in this video. Okay, and there we go. Yeah, it was 2.5 minutes to render that. On an iGPU, even a very, very, very high-end iGPU, I have a very high-end iGPU, it would take significantly longer, obviously. I mean, yeah, it's not really shocking that it's going to take significantly less time on a professional level GPU, but let's continue on. So here's another option. I got this cool little fan thing. This thing was like 10 bucks. It's just a little stand. And it's a little fan. It actually has 4 settings, so it's not like it's just going to be ripping all the time. It doesn't actually add any noise unless it's under full load. And you can just use that here, and it does increase the performance a little bit here. Or actually a fair bit, to be honest. Mainly, I mean, the temperatures are come down. We're down a little bit there. But the biggest thing that you're seeing here is that we're actually getting a decrease in temperatures overall, which then allows it to put a little bit more watts in there till it hits its peak, which would be reflected in higher clocks and more specifically higher watts before it hits its thermals. So it's like the raw temperature may not be any lower, but it'll just add more watts as a result. So the performance is up a little bit here. So not mandatory, but you can certainly do it. Okay, so now we are on the A2000, not the ADA 2000, the A2000. I used that single slot modification as well, so it's just inside there. You can kind of see it poking through. And there we go. So I mean, the performance on the A2000, it's not going to match the other, like the ADA 2000, but it's still going to be pretty good overall. See that there? It's running pretty well. It's also only a 6 gigabyte GPU, but you're still getting, very good performance overall here. We can go in here, just make sure the settings, settings are, much lower, obviously. That's to be expected. It's not in the same realm of existence as the other ones. But like we'll just, actually, I'll go back there. So at 1440p all low, we're getting similar to 1440p with 50% scaling. We're getting a little bit below, but similar to what we were getting at 1440p with 66% scaling, but also much higher settings. But that's fine. I mean, you're still playing Final Fantasy VII at 1440p in general on a tiny little mini PC and getting acceptable frame rates. Like this game, you'll be fine playing it at 55 FPS. This is also a brutal area of the game to run. Thermals look okay. You can see the lows. It's not able to keep up with the ADA, but it's still good. I mean, you're adding a ton of power to a tiny little mini PC, right? So it's certainly something to consider. Get something like this. These A2000s you can actually get for pretty good price now. Honestly, they're not that expensive. This is just the V1 version of this single slot mod as well. Apparently it's got a lot better in the revision version, but that's okay. It's still working. I mean, it's running well, right? This is more the GPU you'd probably want to play either games, like this is a super demanding AAA title. So games like this, you're probably looking more at 1080p, low type stuff. Anything that's, a few years older than this, you'll have no problem with 1440p with scaling. But yeah, it's a few years old GPU, so it's fine. But what we are going to do here is look at some video editing. So we'll come in here. Same idea. What would normally take, you couldn't really do a ton of video editing on a, an iGPU like this. You could, but it would take forever. Come in here, same idea, HEVC. Still have access to the Nvidia. And again, it's a professional level GPU. It's not going to match the ADA, let's be honest. We're talking about an ADA 2000 versus a A2000 with half the amount of VRAM. Less than half the amount of VRAM, actually. 6 versus 16, but it's still going to run well, like you'll see here. It's still going to tear through this. It's still a professional tier GPU one way or the other. Okay, here we are wrapping up. Obviously, it's slower than the ADA. The ADA was about 2.5 minutes. We're looking at probably a little over 3.5 minutes, somewhere around 3.5. So yeah, a minute longer, essentially. So still very viable for professional work, like truly very viable for professional work, just these ADA GPUs. If you're going to be doing a lot of accelerated 3D tasks, because the ADA 2000 is going to have a lot more power, a lot more VRAM. It's also going to have just more ray tracing cores and all that kind of stuff. So if you're doing a lot of professional, like high level professional, not video editing stuff, just like accelerated graphics based professional tasks, the ADA 2000 here, or of course the 4000 it's actually a really good buy in some ways. I mean, it's expensive compared to building a full desktop, but the amount of power you get in something of this size is obscene. Okay, so now I have the AMD GPU in there, which is the most budget offering. There's also some nice low-cost Intel ones. Intel would actually be better than the AMD for professional tasks. The AMD is still going to dramatically increase the performance of the iGPU for relatively low cost. One of the cool things is you don't have to use these adapters. So if you just have a generic, has one HDMI and one DisplayPort, just the generic ones, you can just use those. So let's jump in here, we'll do some gaming. Now this is really not a 1440p in modern games. Of course, a few years old games, again, and the RX 6400 is no punk. Like it's not a beast or anything, but you know, it's going to beat out like a 780M iGPU even. That's a pretty damn good iGPU. So if you're looking at, you know, games from 5 years ago, it'll sing on a card like that. Honestly, you'll be able to do some 1440p type stuff. Worst case, a little bit of scaling, but honestly, you'll be able to do more than you think. However, in modern games, like I'm talking 2024, 2025, demanding titles, you're going to be much happier at 1080p, put it that way. Okay, actually, it's running better than I thought. I didn't think Final Fantasy would run at all. Now we are at low with a bunch of scaling, but it is actually working, 1080p. I didn't anticipate it would actually work at all. Part of that is just VRAM. It's only a 4GB GPU, but let's come up here and get these, get that pop-in solved. Honestly, you could certainly play like this. Get that reset, get that, there you go. I mean, you're looking at the same that you'd get on something like it. Actually, it's better than a Steam Deck, to be honest, but something like that. You know, the Steam Deck you'd be running at like 28 here with these same settings. It really struggles on a Steam Deck. So it's well above that. It'd be more like an ROG Ally or something like that. I mean, it runs just fine. You could easily play. It's not like I'm looking at this and I'm like, what is this game? Like, it's fine, honestly. This is a very hard area of the game to run. Okay, here's a game that's a little lighter, which sounds crazy, but it is. So we'll come in, I mean, Final Fantasy VII is insanely hard to run. Come in here, we'll look at a little bit of The Witcher 3. So we'll go like that, VSync. I mean, we don't need it, whatever, frames per second, whatever. Something like that. Graphics. Sure. And we'll come in here. We'll go back to, where'd that go? Graphics. I have no clue how this is. It's been a while since I benchmarked this. Let's try medium. I think it's going to be fine. 1080p medium, to be honest. Dynamic resolution scaling off. Probably turn off some of the lighting, to be honest, and the light, like that kind of stuff. That'll help. And then like that kind of stuff there. So just like a medium kind of thing with turning those lighting stuffs off. And yeah, you're not going to have any problems with this game, like this era of game. So a few years, this is Witcher 3 Enhanced. So, you know, a few years old games like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, yeah, it's going to be a little tough to run, honestly, on an RX 6400. But basically stuff like this, like Witcher era or before, it's going to be no problem. Honestly, it's going to be no problem. This is like, and again, we'll come back in here for a second. I'll show you. As you can see here, we don't have any FSR. There's no scaling. This is 1080p, just native. It's an easy 60-70 gameplay. You can throw on FSR. I don't actually like FSR in this. We'll put on XeSS because it looks better. So XeSS, honestly, like you don't really need much. Right, something like that. Let's put, I don't even know if that's stuck. Yeah, something like that. XeSS, if need be. Toss on a little bit of that. Get some more frames. You can see there's no sparklies or anything with XeSS. As a result, then, you could do some 1440p gaming, no problems, depending on the game. If it's a few years old like this, you'll be fine. Modern, like brand new games, probably not. Unless it's, you know, not every game is a AAA super demanding game. Like there's modern games that come out all the time that would run at 4K on a 6400. So, yeah, you're still going to get really good results here. It's pretty impressive. Now, video editing is not going to sing on this compared to those Nvidia professional GPUs, but it'll still work and it'll still, you know, give you a decent. Okay, and here's the RX 6400. I mean, honestly, it's still not bad for a little Peasley 4GB VRAM GPU. People dunk on it all the time, but it's a little board power thing. And I mean, we just still did a 4K 60 export with HEVC on AMD. People always dunk on AMD as well. And it's still 6.5 minutes for that. That's not bad. again, it's not behemoth, but it's still good. It's going to do better than, 610M or something like that. So just getting something like this for honestly pretty darn cheap, like basically $100 American these days. Toss it in there, do some 4K, do some 1080p gaming, some light 1440p type stuff, do some 4K video editing. I mean, why not? For what it is, yeah, why not? Long intro. Let's do the conclusion faster. What do I think about it? It's sick. I like the MS-A1. I use it all the time. It's my primary PC. This is the MS-A2. There's an advantage and a disadvantage. Same ports on the front. Back. Very similar ports, but you actually get a bonus USB-C. That's sick. Also Ethernet as well. That's sick. Very cool. I like that. It makes me happy. What else is good? The CPU in here is crazy. 7945HX is an absurd CPU. Absurd. The 9945HX is the same, just a generation newer. Also absurd. So you want like the best CPU performance you can get in a mini PC, just mind-boggling performance in something so small. This is the mini PC to get. It's going to crush most PCs out there, mini PCs. It's going to crush most people's desktops, like full desktops. It won't crush my professional desktop because I also have a full desktop that I use for test platform and has a 9950X in it, which is basically the same as this. That's how high you have to go to beat this mini PC. You have to get the creme de la creme of desktop CPUs because it has it in here. It's just a mobile version. But the advantage of this one here, and I think this will appeal probably to more people, is because it has a true PCI slot. True PCI slot meaning you can get yourself an ADA 2000E, straight up, pop it in, boom, you're cooking. Get yourself an RX 6400, pop it in, boom, you're cooking. Or get yourself something like the ADA 2000 or ADA 4000 and deshell it, which is easy to do. It takes like 2 minutes, and get this mod here from this guy here, slap this in here, and just make this thing crazy. Just being able to take this system and turn it into such a powerful 16-core 32-thread CPU, modern CPU with a 16 gigabyte VRAM professional card, modern professional card, or get the ADA 4000 if you're a real baller, and get yourself 20 gigabytes. Gaming is just going to sing as a result. You'll be able to do lots of gaming on something so small, but more for professional work is really where it's at. So that's the Minisforum MS-A2. It's baller. It's sick. It's crazy. I use the MS-A1 as my daily driver all the time. The MS-A2, you're swapping the Oculink basically for the ability to put in a PCI GPU. It's your call. If you're looking for the most compact, streamlined setup, the MS-A2 is the way to go because you don't need a dock with any GPU hooked up to it.